Airlines have long given me the option when purchasing a ticket to offset my share of the airplane's emission. Now, while that might make me feel less guilty, my question is, am I really preventing climate change when I'm buying offsets?
Yeah, so that is a really good question, and the answer is not easy. The reason is because with offsets, the definitions that we use are that this is some action in which the money that I pay to the airline, and then that money goes to someone who does something that reduces emissions from what they otherwise would have been. Like they build a hydro plant instead of a coal plant, or they plant a forest instead of leaving the land as it was, so carbon stays on that land, or they practice agriculture differently. But it's hard to prove what they would have done in the absence of the payment. And so we often wonder if the payment really caused a change. Because to offset your carbon emissions, it really needed to do something. It needed to be additional. It needed to have them do something different.
But aren't there people whose job it is to verify that these reductions are really additional?
Well, yes, these people do look to see if people did this. Did they build a hydro plant? Did they plant the trees on this land? Or did they preserve the land in some way? But again, we can't prove that it would have happened without the offset payment. So it's kind of like this double negative. You're trying to prove something happened that wouldn't have happened otherwise, and that's just really difficult to do. And then there's a second issue, which is permanence. So someone might plant trees or preserve land, and we might pay them for that. But we can't guarantee that there will be a new government that comes along in Brazil or somewhere and says, forget that land that was preserved through offset payments. We now want to open that up for farmers and so on, and we're going to allow people to cut down the trees. So there's the additionality problem. Is it really additional in reducing emissions? And then there's the permanence problem. Even if it did that, will it endure? Because when we take the carbon out of the ground, burn the fossil fuel, and put it in the atmosphere, it's up there for centuries.
So you're saying that offsets are all false and we should maybe just stop the whole offset business?
Well, I am in the skeptic camp on offsets, and I'm not alone among experts. But I would say, and I talk about this in the books, The Citizen's Guide to Climate Success, that there are two kinds of offsets that we can be certain really are offsets. One of them is called direct air capture, and that's where we set up a technology, and there are firms doing this already, where you actually extract carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and then you could inject that underground. So a direct air capture with carbon storage. We're actually then reversing what we were doing, which was taking it from fossil fuels from underground and putting the carbon up in the atmosphere. What also does that is, instead of having a machine like direct air capture, we grow trees or crops so that they are also bringing CO2 from the atmosphere. We get energy from it, and then we can make hydrogen, or we can make electricity from it, capture the carbon and bury it underground. So that's called bioenergy with carbon capture and storage. So direct air capture with storage, or bioenergy with carbon capture and storage. If we called only those offsets and allowed only those to have payments, that would offset your emissions, that would be a true offset. But it would be more like $200 instead of the $8 that you pay per ton of CO2. So my big message, but there could be other benefits to carbon, to offsets. And one of them is these offset programs are a way of transferring some money from richer countries to poorer countries to help preserve forests, rainforests, we hope, and perhaps agricultural land. So, and also to get farmers, even in developed countries, who also can be recipients of offsets, to be thinking about the climate and how they contribute to it. So there are other benefits from offsets. And so I'm not totally against them. My general recommendation, though, when a given jurisdiction is trying to reduce emissions, is I say don't allow offsets to be more than a small percentage of the policy tools that you use to reduce your emissions. And then you can be more confident you really are going to reduce emissions.